Good. All right. Episode 40 of the Nickla Group podcast. Welcome back, guys. Thank you. Last episode's coming up on 100 views on YouTube. Not bad. Not bad. I lied, though. I did say we would have a new mic arm for Gabe. And once again, he is going to have to hold the mic. We got new mics, okay? But we don't have new mic arms. How often does Amazon not deliver on time? What would you say realistically?
Absolutely unreal. I think that they're busy with their data centers right now.
We're going to get there. I like the segue. So Gabe's got to hold it again. But next time, we should have some new mic arms, and Gabe won't be holding his mic anymore. But we did get new mics, so hopefully it sounds a little better. We had some audio issues last time. Hopefully this works out. So this week, we've got a couple topics. Not much necessarily real estate related this week, but we've got a lot of stuff going on in the region. We're going to talk about the South Shoreline, the Monon Corridor. Monon? I don't know how you say it. But the extension of the South Shoreline down south Munster, Dyer. We're going to spend a little bit of time on these data centers and what's going on. This is a big topic right now throughout Northwest Indiana. We've got a story from Franciscan, who's bringing a new medical school into Crown Point based on their campus here right off 231, which is pretty cool. And then clear up the air a little bit for Genos. Not the Maryville Genos. Okay, the Genos in Dyer and Hobart. We'll touch on that a little bit to give them a little. What's up? You got some? No, you can go. Go ahead.
You said it opposite.
What did I say? We're gonna.
Not the Genos in Maryville.
We're not clearing up any air for Genos in Maryville. We're not saying nothing about that. But Dyer and Hobart, we're gonna hopefully clear some air for them, if that makes sense. Right? Okay. All right. We'll get there. So let's start with the South Shoreline extension. This recently just finished, right, within the last month or so. We're going to call it Monon Corridor. I'm probably not saying that right, but the Monon Corridor, formerly West Lakeshore Corridor project of the South Shoreline. Basically, if you guys know the South Shoreline, it runs, along the shoreline, right, all the way out. It's been extended down south, and it's been a $943 million project. This is a story that came from Chicago Sun-Times. Almost $1 billion invested, $943 million extension known as the Monon Corridor, named after the rail line from decades ago that is no longer in service. This was an extension from the Hammond location down south, down to South Hammond, a Munster Ridge location, and then a Munster and Dyer location. So extending the rail line, $943 million. That's a lot of money invested. Big time addition down here. This is now, and it looks like the investment will generate, according to Mike Braun, governor of Indiana, about $5 billion over 20 years in new investment, including 6,000 jobs. And Braun's goal with this, he wants to include the Chicago Bears crossing the state line, calling Hammond home. So his goal with this is you got the shoreline, you got the South Shoreline there. If the Bears end up in Hammond, it's all right there. That actually would tie in pretty well if they end up in Hammond, because now there's a South Shoreline that runs down to South Hammond. So either way, bring a lot of revenue over the next 20 years, and over $5 billion is what they estimate, 6,000 jobs with the new Munster, Dyer, and South Hammond locations. Gabe, you got any takes on this?
Well, I mean, it's going to be great for even just, let's talk about real estate. I believe that there was an apartment building that was built near the South Hammond train station, and I believe it was 60 days that they all sold out. So they're seeing real estate kind of go pretty fast towards that. Of course, that's going to extend going into Dyer and Munster. And I do believe that eventually they're going to extend it all the way down to Lowell. That's the future. So, we're going to see real estate values around there hold up pretty well, if not accelerate a little bit quicker than normal, which is going to be good for us. You know what? And not only do you have the Monon Corridor, they also did the double track going east towards Michigan City as well. So they're actually doing a lot of work on the railways, which is going to bring tons of positive benefits here to Northwest Indiana.
Yeah, the double track project was back in 2024, which they extended it. They made some additions, two new stations in Miller Beach, added a station at 11th Street in Michigan City, and made upgrades to Miller Beach, Portage, Ogden Dunes. So between that, I mean, if you look at, I think this graph right here is a good one, kind of shows how far that railway runs. That's a pretty the Munster and Dyer running south is huge. We're going to talk a lot more about Michigan City over the upcoming weeks. Gabe's got a lot of really good info about what's going on in Michigan City. Good place to invest. We've done episodes on Michigan City in the past too, but I think even now there's a lot more going on. So good stuff to talk about. But I think this railway adds a lot. Even someone who lives in St. John, Cherville, and now they can drive, take the train up. These things are big for just giving more access to Chicago when it comes to work, daily working, commuting, etc. So I think it helps a lot for people and honestly the economy here. So
you know what? I'm already seeing people move based on these. I just helped somebody a couple months ago. They moved to Cedar Lake. He commutes in the Chicago, and he's going to be driving to the Munster station. So prior to that even being open, his options were very limited. He wanted to stay close to the station there in East Chicago, so he didn't have the ability to move as far south. But now that these are open, you're seeing people move based on exactly where these stations are. So it's giving a lot more people more options in the area.
15 minutes from Cedar Lake to get to a Dyer location and then take the train. Yeah, that's great. We're going to hop into a hot topic right now, which is the data centers. Amazon plans to invest $15 billion in Northwest Indiana. Amazon announced plans to invest $15 billion to support AI and cloud computing technologies and more than double their data center investment in Indiana. Together with Amazon's $11 billion data center campus in St. Joseph County announced last year, that's in New Carlisle. This makes Amazon the largest technology investor in Indiana. Amazon is now committed to invest $26 billion in AI infrastructure in Indiana, underscoring their long-term commitment and strengthening the skilled workforce, supporting local communities, driving economic growth in the Hoosier State. This comes from NWIforum.org. That's the we'll link in the stories here. $15 billion, 1,100 jobs. Okay, create 1,100 new skilled jobs, including engineers, network specialists, security and operations professionals. 100% of costs and new NIPSCO electric generation will be paid for by Amazon and will create $1 billion in savings to ratepayers over the 15-year agreement. Gabe, Gabe's got a lot on this, and I'm gonna let you talk about it. If the pushback from people, now this is in Hobart, right? So this is right in our backyard. In Hobart, it's a huge data center. $15 billion is massive. From my understanding, the $11 billion data center that's going into or is done or they're working on in New Carlisle was the biggest project in Indiana history, or one of them. I may be off on that, but it was one of the biggest projects in Indiana's history. So this would be up there as well for $15 billion invested. Now, you hear this and you think, okay, 1,100 jobs, great. Everything's paid for by new NIPSCO electric generation will be paid for by Amazon. Okay, great. So it doesn't cost people anymore. But there are negatives to these data centers. Gabe, you have a lot more knowledge on this. So basically this is all infrastructure for all of our data and AI computing stuff. And as we go further into this world, there's going to need to be a lot more data centers because this is just the start of AI. But there's downsides to this. The community definitely does not want this. So Gabe, go ahead. What are the downsides to data centers being in our backyards?
Some of the things that I've looked up, there's multiple negatives for the community, such as anywhere that it's near. If it's near where people are living, there's always going to be light generated. So it's not going to be very dark near your area if you're near this. I've seen even air pollution due to these affecting up to, I believe, a half mile around some of these data centers. And I'd have to pull the sources on this. I was reading multiple different articles to come up with this. And there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily see. Now, I know it's saying, hey, we're going to create 1,100 new jobs. Here's a stat. According to CNBC, there was a city in Illinois where they opened up a Microsoft data center. Now, that data center got $38 million in tax exemptions. That's money that would have went to schools, the roads, the infrastructure. But the state said, hey, we're going to give you an exemption just for bringing that business here. In my opinion, it's just so the politicians can say, hey, I brought massive business to our area. It's a great headline, but it's not necessarily great for the residents. The funny thing about that, $38 million in tax exemptions, they only created 20 permanent jobs. So even though this headline is saying they're going to create 1,100 jobs, most of that is for the people who are going to be building the actual data center, which is not permanent. Eventually it'll be built, and there's going to be very few permanent jobs. And a lot of times, also according to CNBC, they're saying that Indiana kind of gave a similar deal to Amazon. Now, I don't know the exact tax exemptions they're going to get. Sometimes it's just exemptions off of the sales tax. Sometimes they'll give them incentives off of the property taxes as well. So I don't know the exact tax exemptions they're getting, but once again, they are getting exemptions. And the other thing I find funny is that, a lot of people in the area have been complaining about NIPSCO lately. And they really make it seem in these articles that I've read that this is going to be a huge win for everybody who uses NIPSCO. And the reason is, and I just found this so funny, that they are saying they're going to invest $1 billion in NIPSCO. And the big benefit for us is, hey guys, Amazon is going to need a ton of extra energy infrastructure to power these data centers. Well, good news for you, Northwest Indiana, they're going to pay for it themselves. So we get a massive win because they're going to pay for the own infrastructure that they need. And I'm being facetious here, but this is what they constantly reference. And I also read that it is going to give enough money for NIPSCO to update some of the infrastructure. And I found, this is according to NIPSCO, they filed a report that said that the average NIPSCO user will save $7 a month on their bills. I don't know a single person that's going to really care about that $7 when they're seeing their bills go up tremendously over the past year.
80, 90, 100%.
Right. I've been seeing crazy numbers. So, the devil's in the details. There's a lot of things here that you can read these articles and you don't really see the negative benefits. But from what I'm understanding, there's a lot of negative consequences from these data centers.
One that's interesting to me that I don't know enough about, but is the water usage process of it, right? So there's a ton of water that needs to be used to keep these places cool because of they're 24/7, 365. And there needs to be a certain amount of generators for each of these in case the grid goes out. So there's tons of generators that have to be, and there's permits that have to be pulled for all these generators. But the water usage part of it to me is interesting because especially in areas like in Arizona, where there's a ton of data centers going up and areas where there's droughts, but they use so much water that now it's pulling from the water usage of the community. That part's pretty interesting to me. How is it not going to impact people's energy bills? That part I don't really understand. There's some arguments that say it's going to go up. People's energy rates will go up. Not really sure. I do think you're going to hear, there's a lot of stories regarding the noise from them. So they just constantly have these sounds, there's a constant humming sound that you just hear. And the light pollution thing you mentioned too, there's always light, there's constant noise pollution. And you're basically taking farms, turning them into these big buildings that are using tons and tons and tons of water. So short term, it sounds great because yes, people who are in the trades are getting jobs for the next couple of years. But long term, you go from 1,100 jobs, this example to that example in Illinois to 20, at the cost of having these big, massive data centers right by communities and using community water and resources, but they're saying they're going to pay for those resources and energy. I don't know, man. There's a lot of weird things about it, and this is just the start of data centers. This one here, being in Hobart, is interesting just with the location of it. To me, being in Hobart, I didn't expect something this size to just go in Hobart. I thought that was kind of interesting. So, you got anything else on this? I don't know. This is something I don't have enough information on and know enough about. But my initial response is and I don't want to just be the not in my backyard kind of guy, but it's kind of weird when you look at everything related to it. The other part is it's just getting started. There's going to be so much more. We're going to need so much more data centers.
Oh yeah. And
so I don't know.
I really went down the rabbit hole. I was really trying to figure out what are all the perceived negative consequences of these. Because I see the no data center signs all the time. I don't think I've ran into a single person that said, wow, we're getting data centers. I love it. Yes. And regarding the energy, I believe that they're saying that this raises people's energy bills because these data centers generally need new infrastructure to power them. And if they're not paying for them, well, then the company, in our case, NIPSCO, would then raise other people's bills in order to pay for that extra infrastructure that needs to be built. And what these articles are saying, Amazon's actually going to pay for that. And once again, I think it's so funny that that's the good news for us, that Amazon is going to pay for their own infrastructure. Like, thank you so much, Amazon, for that.
One thing too that has been really interesting in some of these investigative reports is the amount of the transparency that's not there. It's very limited. There's nothing that can be discussed about these data centers because there's all these NDAs that are signed. So like if you go to get information about them or anything related to a lot of the permits pulled or things, there's a lot of NDAs that are signed. So it's kind of interesting like why it has to be that way. I don't know. It's weird. It's very bizarre. I know that it is what it is, the world that we live in now. We need these data centers to store all this data. But it's also very weird just how it is and how they're just like plopping up in areas that are close to, for commuting, but like near communities. The near community part is kind of interesting because they got to pull from their power and their grids and their water. And the water part is pretty concerning to me, especially in areas where, they're low on water and they have droughts. So
I kind of wonder if maybe they're putting them in these communities because we are so close to Lake Michigan. There's an abundance of water for them.
That's 100% a part of it. For New Carlisle and for here, it's definitely a part of it. It's because we're in that Lake Michigan water basin, and they can get access to Lake Michigan. But it's got to be areas where there is a water source.
Right.
You're 100% right. Yep. That's part of it. They need so much water to keep those places cool. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I think that I've heard about some people who know people who, are involved in these things, whether from the local municipalities and governments and stuff, and there's no questions about them from their aspect, but all of the residents, not one resident is like, yep, so it's all very bizarre and interesting. The deals behind the scenes are probably pretty gnarly,
Like you said, the things we're not seeing are a lot of the times are the tax incentives that these companies are getting. From my understanding, a lot of politicians want to give them that just to bring the business here.
Yeah.
Just to say that, hey, I brought big business to the community. Vote for me again.
Yep, that makes sense. Let's hop into Franciscan Alliance. This is a pretty cool story. Franciscan is bringing an osteopathic medical school to Crown Point. This is an article from Franciscan Health on April 22nd, so just about 2 weeks ago. Franciscan Health, nonprofit Catholic healthcare system with 11 hospitals in Indiana, is planning to build an osteopathic medical school in Crown Point. In addition to a medical school, Franciscan is developing plans to expand the number of graduate residency slots in Indiana by more than 250. Franciscan anticipates opening its medical school in 2030, according to President and CEO Kevin Leahy, I believe is how you say it, Leahy, of Franciscan Alliance. The initial first-year class size will be 100 medical students. Enrollment will grow each year to 200 students in each class. Medical school will eventually reach total enrollment of 800 students. Pretty cool. Quote from Franciscan: building a medical school will allow us to continue to expand our healthcare ministries, being able to train the next generation of physicians. So to sum this up, there's a little bit more here. There may be a few things that I pick from this article. I will say this part. Mayor Pete Land said the city of Crown Point is excited to see Franciscan further its investment in not only in Crown Point, but in Northwest Indiana. Since Franciscan opened its hospital in Crown Point more than 50 years ago, the city has transformed into a beacon of healthcare. And there's a lot of that you see throughout Northwest Indiana, or throughout Crown Point right now. University of Chicago, now obviously Franciscan. There's a lot of really good medical coming into the area. What's cool about this, so basically, people hear osteopathic and immediately the word of osteoporosis comes to your mind. But osteopathic medicine, doing research on this, is a doctor can go to school to become a doctor. The most common designation you hear is MD. So Gabe Corral, MD, right? A doctor who goes through osteopathic medicine is a DO. So not an MD, but they can do everything the same thing that an MD does. So it could be Gabe Corral, DO. DO has all the abilities and access to pharmaceuticals and all these things that an MD has. But doctors of osteopathic medicine are trained a lot more on the mind, body, spirit is what they referenced a lot. Mind, body, spirit, more natural, organic, and just natural ways of healing the body. So using not just, okay, here's a medicine to take. Now they can do that. So hearing it all summed up, there was an MD that I was learning from on this, and he said if you found a doctor and their designation was DO and not MD, there's nothing that they can't do that an MD could. It shouldn't be the difference maker of whether or not you decide to pick that doctor. So what's cool about this is like, okay, now you can go to school in Crown Point starting in 2030 to be a doctor. That's pretty sweet, man. It's pretty cool. I mean, just seeing what they're doing there, and it's going to be connected to their campus here on 231 and I-65. They're going to build that out. I mean, 800 students is a lot of students, but I think it shows a big connection with how much they're investing into actual people who are going to be in the healthcare world for work. So pretty cool for them to do that here. Location obviously is great just because of the access of everything here in Northwest Indiana. But to be able to say, yeah, I went to Franciscan Health and got my DO, like I'm a doctor of osteopathic medicine. Pretty cool. So all that being said, I think it's a great investment into the area. This was an announcement just 2 weeks ago, and I think it's going to be. I think that's pretty great. I think it's pretty cool. Gabe, you got any thoughts on this?
I love it. I think people in our generation, I think that the whole look on the medical establishment has changed. And I'll have to point back to COVID. People opened up their eyes. And I just feel like nowadays people want more of a natural way of healing rather than just taking pills.
100%.
And if this doctor is going to have more of, hey, instead of I'm just going to give you pills to put a Band-Aid on what hurts, let's go to the source. Let's figure out how we can eliminate this naturally. And I just talk to so many more people who are on that wavelength nowadays rather than just taking pills. So I love that they're bringing this to the local community here in Crown Point. They've been doing a lot of medical stuff here. They got the University of Chicago being built. They built a new Franciscan, and now we're going to have another place to train doctors here in our backyard. I love it. I think it's amazing.
It's pretty cool, man. A medical school in Crown Point. I mean, for doctors coming through. I read this and I think, I don't know if there's more behind the scenes as to why they decided to do it like doctor of osteopathic, or if it's strategic where it's like, hey, our generation is, like you just said, we are looking for more natural, holistic ways to heal. And so they also train them on that. So they have the access to MD stuff, but also train them on this. So is it because it's easier to do that and to open that school, or is it because they understand that that's where our generation is at? Either way, like there's some more people I want to talk to about this who I know through Franciscan and just in the medical field. But I look at it and I say, I like that idea because I would rather have more, just based off of what it is that this designation is and what they are taught and trained on. I think it aligns a lot more with our generation and what we care more about. Don't just give me a pill. Let's talk about what are the natural ways of healing. So that's my very, very, very basic understanding of this. But maybe we can learn a little bit more about that as we go. But I think it's a phenomenal addition. Just the fact that somebody say like, yeah, I went to medical school in Crown Point, Indiana. That's crazy. That's kind of wild to go to med school and become a doctor. So I think that's pretty awesome. We'll sum up with this, pretty short show, but we'll sum up with this. A lot going on recently with everything related to Geno's and Maryville. We want to, for the couple people who watch this, just give a little bit of a plug here for the owner of Geno's in Dyer and in Hobart. They are not affiliated with the Geno's situation in Maryville. I'm not going to begin to talk about the Geno's situation in Maryville. I think everyone's seen enough and heard enough. But for the owner, they released a statement that Geno's in Dyer and Hobart is completely 100% unaffiliated with the Maryville Steakhouse. They are not the same. So you don't have to boycott Geno's in Hobart and Geno's in Dyer. Those are great steakhouses, great restaurants. The owners are separate from whatever is happening in Maryville. You got anything on that, Gabe?
I don't have much. I just thought it was a wild, wild story. Looking at the posts, some of the people who were incriminated, some of the names absolutely blew me away. It was kind of like a movie, I felt like I was watching a story from Casino.
Dude, I didn't know one. I didn't know one of them. I didn't know anybody there. So for me, I was like, I don't know any of these people. But I mean, essentially, from my understanding, it's all just gambling. Right?
There was gambling, yeah. I think that was the main thing. Was
That's
gambling.
Great. And some dude from Florida ratted him out because he owed them $30,000.
Right. That's what I read. And the main guy owned was it Burr Ridge? Where was his? I forgot the name of the restaurant. It's on my tongue. No, the main guy apparently owned a restaurant in, I believe, Burr Ridge.
It's a nice suburb, really nice Chicago suburb.
Yeah. So
Dang,
I mean, that's definitely something to look into. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it, dude.
Probably not the type of people to misspeak about.
Yes, yeah, that's for sure. But that's our story for this week. We didn't really talk much about real estate. Excuse me. We've got some other stuff to talk about upcoming. But South Shoreline going to Munster and Dyer, that extension and the improvements down out east. Amazon data centers Franciscan's Medical School, and then Gino's in Dyer and Hobart is not affiliated with the Maribel one. So that's what we got this week. Got anything else to add in here, Gabe?
I know you said we didn't talk about real estate, but I mean, all of these directly tie into
Yes.
real estate.
Yeah, they do.
Right? Maybe people won't want to move near a data center. It could affect that. Or maybe everybody, well, I know people like to be close to railroad stations. So these train stations are absolutely, in my opinion, going to be a positive impact on the real estate around them.
And think about people who think they have to go somewhere else for medical school, and now they can stay here and live here. You know, you can go to med school here in Crown Point in the next 4 years. Pretty sweet. It's awesome, man. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you guys. Episode 40. Appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.